Right guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm in this 2018 Audi TTS. Before we get onto the actual review of this car, I'm just going to give you a couple of moments just to get rid of all those tired old jokes that you've probably got on your mind. The ones about the nail technician, the hairstylist, the air hostess. All done? Excellent. It's important that we did that because in my mind this is one of the best usable sports cars money can buy. Seriously. Not only do you get awesome performance, you get good looks, a good sized boot, foldable rear seats, plenty of storage, low and sensible running costs, its enviable Quattro 4-wheel drive system, and to top it all off, its excellent handling characteristics. Seriously, for this price, what more could you want? The Audi TT has been around since the late 90s. And I think it's fair to say it's become an icon. I know you'll instantly dismiss it as being a nail technician's car, but I'm sorry, you're wrong. Plain wrong. Especially with this third generation. This Mark 3 TT has been around since 2015, and it's rumoured to be discontinued soon, which is a terrible shame. It's basically because there are too many idiots in the world buying crossover, two-wheel drive, small SUVs, which are ultimately more profitable for manufacturers. I fear that in a decade, all we'll be left with is a raft of forgettable, high-riding soft roaders with curbed alloys and massive balloon payments. I read an article, I don't know how true this is, but I read an article that said the next generation TT will actually be a small crossover vehicle and an EV to boot. I mean, what were they thinking of? Of course, manufacturers will love that because they're far more profitable. Why spend hundreds of millions of pounds making a pin-sharp, usable, reliable sports car when you could just give us all a jacked up Golf for about £300. Anyway, if the TT's days are indeed numbered, I believe this TTS should go down in history as one of the best. Under the bonnet is a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine, which produces a staggering 306 brake horsepower. I mean, 306 from a 2-litre turbo engine. It's unbelievable. The SL500 I filmed with recently, with a 5-litre V8, that produced 306 horsepower. Exactly the same number as this. And that's got 3 litres more. To get so much power from such a little engine is unbelievable engineering. I suppose it just shows you how far we've come. This car will deal with 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. It's properly quick. You've got these drive select modes. So if I select dynamic, there we go. Pop it into S, shall we? There we go. Just approaching the bypass, so if it's all clear and safe to do so, I shall put my foot down. This is a quick car. I don't know about the TTS, it should be called the FFS. This is a proper license loser, this. I'll slow it down. Well, I didn't really expect that. Although, yeah, I did, because a few years ago I had a TTS, a 2012 TTS Roadster, and loved that car. That had, I think, 270 horsepower, and they managed to increase it even more for this model. Firstly, let's discuss its appearance. It's had quite a bit of Botox and a tummy tuck, so it doesn't look as curvy or as affable as the previous generation. It looks all mean and angry and aggressive, and it is definitely a wolf in wolf's clothing. It's got a permanent frown. It's got a look which tells other cars to get out of the way, otherwise it'll shout and bark. You could have bought this as a 6-speed manual, or the best choice of all is this 6-speed twin-clutch S-Tronic Auto, which is excellent. It changes gear at the speed of light. I was never a big fan of early DSGs or twin clutches because around town they didn't have that creep that you got with a standard auto. So it was kind of all or nothing. Whereas with this is 2018, so they've programmed it and tweaked it so it really feels, when you're going slowly, as if you're in a standard automatic with a torque converter. And of course, the minute you put it into sport mode, it changes gear so much quicker than you could possibly dream of. In addition to that, you've got these nice paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, The remarkable thing about the TT is when you want to get a move on and put your foot down, it barks and shouts and rears its ugly head. But around town at 30 miles an hour, it's silent. It's like being in a Prius. It remains hushed and quiet and refined until you poke it with a stick, and then it will rear up like a cobra. Oh dear. When I think of a usable sports car, I don't think of a Mazda MX-5 that, yes, okay, you could use it every day, but you wouldn't really want to. I think of something like this, because it's supremely practical. Alright, okay, it's not a Volvo estate car, but the boot is very generous, and you can fold the seats down flat. And also, when you're late for a meeting, there you go, not late anymore. This car is like a sensible solicitor who at the weekends goes to all the Millwall away games, if you know what I mean. It's perfectly capable of doing both, and that right there is what makes a great usable sports car. There are some visual differences with the TTS over the TT. For example, it's available in a range of colours that aren't available on the standard TT. For example, Vegas yellow or Sepang blue. Most Audis are only sold in 50 shades of grey to sensible accountants and solicitors who are most worried about resale values. But if you don't like to be conspicuous, then I would suggest going for a bright, bold colour, because they really make the cars pop. Some of the differences you get with the TTS, you get these satin wing mirrors, you get a chrome grille, and most importantly, quad exhausts, which pop and pop and pop like a Panzer tank running over bubble wrap. And they sound excellent, as I'll demonstrate now, because it's quite addictive. So I'm in sport mode. Listen to that. That is seriously quick. I mean, you get a sensation of speed, but it's not until you look down you realise how quick you're actually going. So quick, in fact, the man that ran my recent speed awareness course would be sat there shaking his head, tutting. Now I've got to talk about the interior. Initially, you'll be blown away with it. You'll think it feels modern and minimalist. But then as you start to use it, I'm not a huge fan. Aesthetically, it's good, but ergonomically, not so much. Allow me to explain. The only screen you get is this here on the cockpit, and it's Audi's virtual cockpit, which is fantastic to be fair. But there's no screen here. It's completely driver focused, which isn't so great if you're a passenger. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, but who cares? Well, I think you will eventually. Because as a passenger, the passenger can't control the radio, can't enter a sat-nav address in for you. So on a long journey, the passenger will have to sit there staring at a boring black dashboard while you're having all the fun. Once you get used to the location of the controls and the fact that everything is here on the dash, I mean, you do get used to it, but it just doesn't feel quite right. I think they should have had a screen there, or at least one that pops out. All the climate control buttons are buried here within the dials, which is quite a nice design. And you've even got the option to have your maps here on the dash, which is great actually. But I just feel like it would have benefited from another screen there. This car belongs to my colleague and I've borrowed it to film with today, but every time I've driven it, it takes you about half an hour to get used to where everything is. I mean, I suppose if it was your only car, then yes, it wouldn't be a problem after a while. But for a car to jump in and out of, if for example if it was your second car or your wife's car or whatever, yeah, it would take some getting used to. The ride is a little bit bumpy and a little bit firm. You can change this using Audi's Drive Select mode, so if I select Comfort, in theory, it should get more comfortable. But in reality, it doesn't make a big difference. It is slightly better. It's got this very clever magnetic suspension setup, which, if I now select Dynamic mode, is supposed to make everything all hunkered down and stiff and sharp. And stiff and sharp are the Audi TT's middle names. The way this car handles is remarkable. Because it's four-wheel drive, as you approach a corner, you can almost go into it at any speed you like, and it will just cope with it. I just can't get this car to put a foot wrong. It does everything I ask of it and more. Because this is a very fast four-wheel drive sports car with over 300 horsepower, you'd expect the running cost to be astronomical, wouldn't you? Well, they're not. That's the TTS's other strong point. It's very sensible to run. Road tax is only a couple of £100 a year. Fuel economy is excellent. I mean, yes, if you drive everywhere with your foot completely pinned to the floor, it won't be brilliant. But around town you'll average 30 or 32 miles per gallon. On a motorway run you'll do 45 without any sweat. The fuel tank is 55 litres, so here in the UK right now it will cost you about £70 to fill it with V-Power fuel. Or if you live in Dubai, it will cost you about 37 pence. Reliability is also a strong point. If you service it regularly, and I don't just mean the engine by the way, I mean the gearbox every 40,000 miles and the Quattro 4-wheel drive system, it will last. They're very reliable cars, these. Another good thing to mention, Audi main dealer servicing costs are quite reasonable. They do fixed price servicing, although you are probably better off finding a good specialist and sticking with them. I just think it's a very practical sports car. You don't have to sacrifice an awful lot. The seats are on the firm side, but they're quite supportive and comfortable. The rear seats are quite spacious if you're a fetus, and the rear seats fold flat, so there's plenty of room for luggage. This car has even got the quilted leather seats, which I used to be a big fan of, but now I've gone off them slightly. They used to be only seen in things like Bentleys, and now they just remind me of Scouse footballers' wives, or, you know, orange people from Alderley Edge. They're just not as exclusive as they once were. It's a very easy car to live with. It's no bigger than a 5-door Audi A3, so it's quite easy to park. If you're thinking of buying a Mark 3 TT and you don't know whether to buy the TT or the TTS, honestly the TT that I filmed with about 6 months ago is very good too, but the TTS is just that little bit more special. The big difference is you've got 80 horsepower more in the TTS. I mean, 80 horsepower more, that's nearly the entire power of a Mark 1 Golf GTI, more than the standard TT. Prices here in the UK for used TTSs start at around £22,000. For one like this, you're going to have to spend between £25,000 and £27,000. I just think they represent great value for money. I know technically if you're really pushing it to the limit around some racetrack, it won't be as good as an M2 or an M240i or a Cayman S. But for everyday use on the roads, I think it's better. It's fast, grippy, nimble, agile, cheap enough to run and cheap enough to buy. They're loaded with tech. The Bang & Olufsen sound system is excellent. And if you get bored with the Bang & Olufsen sound system, you could also just put it into sport mode. It truly is one of my favourite achievable or affordable sports cars of the last decade. It's quite a bold statement that, isn't it? But they are that good. I cannot think of a single reason not to buy one. And at this price point, it's one of the used car market's best kept secrets. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. And yeah, cheers guys. If you're interested in signing up for my online course onto how to become a car dealer or get into the used car business, make sure you click the link below. I'll leave it in the description. So yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time.